Yo! Welcome back to One More Mana. My name's Derek, and today we are getting right back into another deck tech. Now, Corey has just been sitting there on the horizon just teasing us with the new commander decks, with the set, with all these beautiful monstrosities that we're going to get. And I figured today, no better time than to just celebrate that anticipation with a deck tech on one of my own personal favorite monstrosities. And that monstrosity is none other than Hogaak Arisen Necropolis. Now, before we get too much further into it, if you want any cards in here, if you just want to sit there waiting for those Ikoria spoilers to come up and those pre-orders to come up, head over to TCG Player and use our affiliate link down below. Any cards you get through that link will help support the channel, help support the show. We really do appreciate the help. TCG Player is absolutely amazing, especially when all these new commander decks are going to be coming out, all these spicy new cards. There's no better place to go ahead and pick them up. We really do appreciate the help. But now getting back into the beautiful monstrosity that is Hogaak. First off, it definitely looks like something straight out of a Dark Souls game, which as a huge fan of the Souls series, I absolutely appreciate and love. But if you're not familiar with Hogaak already, 5 colorless and 2 Golgari hybrid mana symbols for an 8/8 trampler that you can't spend mana to cast. It can be cast from your graveyard, and it has both Delve and Convoke. A lot of stuff going on here. Now, it's very easy to see apparently why it broke so many other formats, because when you put Delve and Convoke on a card, that's basically just saying, here, cast this for free. Don't worry about spending mana. And when you can do that for an 8/8 trampler, it can be scary. The whole point of this deck is we really want to fill our graveyards, make lots of tokens so that we can just keep getting Hogaak back again and again, and then use this giant 8/8 trampler for value. Now, you could always make it so it's more Voltron-y, you make it so you're swinging at people and taking people out with commander damage, but there's just so many cards that care about power matters, and a ton of my deck techs have been based around powers matters cards, because in commander, it's so easy to make big creatures, and the value you get off those for things other than attacking are huge. So we're going to be flooding the board with tokens, dumping our whole library, and just watching Hogaak crawl out of the grave again and again. So starting with the creatures, there's a few categories that really matter to us and the types of creatures that we need in this deck. Those are going to be our graveyard fillers, our token generators, and our value cards, essentially benefiting from the fact that we have this massive 8/8 that's coming back again and again. So when it comes to token producers, there's nothing better than an Avenger of Zendikar in a deck like this. You can just poop out a ton of plants, just enough plants to essentially recast Hogaak whenever you need him, especially if it gets in the late game. Avenger of Zendikar most times literally just turns into a Hogaak cast, because unless you have some crazy like Ancient Tomb or Gaia's Cradle shenanigans going on, you're going to have at least 7 lands. Boom, right there, that is Hogaak. And the nice thing about convoking is summoning sickness doesn't matter. You don't have to, the creatures aren't gaining the ability to tap for mana, you're tapping them due to the convoke ability. Meaning, you can cast Avenger for 7, get all these tokens, just tap all the plants immediately and bring Hogaak out. And this is going to lead to a lot of these loop type things that we can get into, because Convoke not having to do with the creature itself tapping for the mana, it being part of the cost, makes it so powerful. Another one I love is Deep Forest Hermit. I'm so happy that this got printed in Modern Horizons, because the old version of this is essentially the same card. It was so expensive, and it's not that it wasn't powerful, but it was just expensive because it was old. Now we got Deep Forest Hermit, and this is a staple in so many green token decks. Yeah, Pump Squirrels, we don't worry about the fact that it's going to disappear. You get 4 squirrels for it, and in a deck like this, it's kind of doing a mini version of that Avenger type deal, where we're just flooding with tokens for a relatively cheap mana cost. One of the most powerful token generators in the deck is Tendershoot Dryad, and this is just because it just adds up so fast. Every upkeep you're getting a Saproling, and it's pumping all of your Saprolings, meaning if it just sits around for a couple of rounds of the table, it gets way out of hand. And not only is it out of hand with a bunch of 1/1s, if Tendershoot's still around, those are 3/3s. Now all of a sudden, they're not just there to tap to get Hogaak out. Now you actually you get enough 3/3s on the board, you can do some damage with it. So this does a great job of building a scary board presence, and also just pooping out those tokens so we can get Hogaak back again and again. But there are going to be times board wipes happen. We might not be able to fill our board with tokens. We might want to be able to get Hogaak out for relatively cheap, and the best way to do that is filling your graveyard, because especially those 5 colorless mana in his base mana cost, and any commander tax that you might get if someone exiles your graveyard, you want to just be able to fill your graveyard so you can delve away some of the cards you don't need anymore. And filling your graveyard is a huge part of the deck. So one of the just go-tos that is not going to be any surprise is a card like Hermit Druid. This is a huge card in combo decks, I know, and I actually don't know if it's still a part of EDH. I know it used to be, but we're not using it for combo purposes. We actually run quite a few basic lands. The nice thing is we can still get good chunks of our graveyard. Crazy thing about Hermit Druid is even when you don't build a deck to break it, it's still one of the most powerful mill cards or self-mill cards in the whole deck. Then obviously, like every other graveyard deck, you want your dredge package. Dredging is freaking amazing. So you're gonna run Golgari Grave Troll, Golgari Thug, Stinkweed, all that type of stuff. Throw it all in there, as many different creatures as you want. Dredge is just insane. You just repeatable over and over and over again. You keep filling your graveyard up. And the craziest thing about these is some of them are pretty good on their own. With Golgari Grave Troll, you can get a decent sized body on the board turn after turn if you're casting it. With Golgari Thug, you can get creatures back from your graveyard, and Stinkweed Imp has this weird old school death touch. I would play them if they were vanilla nothings, but the fact that you get value, I find myself so many times, I do like graveyard decks, and I find myself so many times being excited to be able to cast these every turn because, yeah, you don't want to attack into a flying death touch, or you want to recycle a certain creature. It's super powerful. Now, as far as payoff for having a massive creature, we're going to get to some of these in the game winning step because, like, yeah, the most exciting ones we're definitely going to say. But in the meantime, there are some that you just get immediate value off of. Disciple of Bolas is a great example. Gives us card draw, gives us life gain. We don't care if we get rid of Hogaak because it's so easy to bring back in this deck. Playing this deck, I don't think there was ever a situation where more than a turn maybe I was thrown off from casting Hogaak, but it's so easy to drop a couple Mana Dorks out because that's the best thing about Mana Dorks in this deck. They're even better than normal because Summoning Sickness doesn't matter. You just drop a couple Mana Dorks, tap them immediately to convoke and bring out Hogaak. We have lots of low drop creatures in this deck, so it's very easy to get them back again and again. So paying the mana to sack them and draw all these cards, 90% of the time in this deck, you're bringing him immediately back out. And the next, technically this is a Toughness Matters card, but close enough. Especially with Hogaak, he's at 8/8, it doesn't matter. Same body, same booty. All that matters with this one is the value is insane. I almost put it in the game-winning step, but I decided just to poke it in here because it doesn't directly win the game. It's Karasta Guildmage. You can pay 4 mana. You do need black and green, so you can't just use colorless. But you pay this mana, you sack a creature, and you get 1/1s equal to its toughness. Now, you get 8 1/1s, you can immediately tap 7 of those to bring Hogaak back. If you have enough mana, pay, sack Hogaak again, get 8 more 1/1s, and just do that over and over for as much mana as you have. This late game, the value plays with this get crazy, get insane, and can just basically make sure you outgrind whoever's left in the game. Now with the artifacts, there's a couple that are just, to me, the most important. First is Altar of Dementia. It's a staple in any mill deck. So good, and especially with Hogaak. You can sack Hogaak, throw 8 things into your graveyard, and then immediately recast them. Sometimes not even having to exile your graveyard. Essentially, you get into so many board states with this where you can just pick and choose when you want to fill your graveyard. Also, having a sack outlet is so important. We're also running Phyrexian Altar for the same reason, because we don't want Hogaak exiled. We need Hogaak to die, because it can crawl straight up out of that grave, but if it gets exiled, we gotta worry about commander tax, and like, nobody's trying to worry about commander tax in a Hogaak deck. You want to just make sure that's not an option. You want to keep sack outlets on board, and these two just do a great job. The value's just too good. You ramp a little bit, you fill your graveyard, and make sure Hogaak just keeps on coming back from the dead. Another one of my favorites that I throw in a lot of graveyard decks is Perpetual Timepiece. This card's the ultimate just overextending protection, essentially, because if you just get a little mill happy and you get down to about maybe 15, 20 cards in your library, you're running real low, all of a sudden someone goes to Bajuka Bog you, yeah, this is really nice to be able to reshuffle it back, because you got plenty of mill effects to refill it back up, but if your whole library is essentially exiled, then you're kind of screwed. In the enchantment slot, 2 that are just, to me, just so important are going to be Awakening Zone and Bitter Blossom. I love Awakening Zone even more in this deck because you don't have to sack your Eldrazi's. You can just tap them for the mana. Now, they are colorless, so it's only going to be paying for the colorless part of Hogaak. Still amazing. And Bitter Blossom, you're going to be getting those 1/1 little fairies. They are black, so you will be able to tap them to cast Hogaak for the 2 hybrid symbols, and it's just great to have these little engines always going, because then it always makes sure you at least have those minimum of 2 creatures on board, and you can just delve the rest for Hogaak. The next one, you guys literally just heard me talk about this when we did Kresh, and you'll notice a lot of similarities between this and the Kresh deck, but Death's Presence is so good in this deck, whereas before, it was kind of a backup Kresh, essentially. This deck, some of those loops, remember that loop I just talked about with the Karasta Guildmage? Well, now imagine if every time you did that, you got to throw 8+1 counters onto another creature. It gets silly. We have so many sack outlets in this deck, and we want to make sure Hogaak dies again and again. It's basically always going to be guaranteeing we're going to throw 8+1 counters onto something else. And with some of the loops, yeah, it's going to be a whole lot more than 8, and it is great to be able to do this. Sometimes you can even get into it at instant speed with certain things and use it as a weird combat trick. It's a really fun card in the deck. With the source, we've got 3 huge token producers that we love in the deck. First one's going to be Fungal Sprouting. This is great. You have Hogaak, meaning you're going to get 8 Sacrillings from this. That's already enough to recast it, so you already are in a spot where you can sack Hogaak to one of a number of effects, get that value, and immediately recast Hogaak. Phenomenal. Also, obviously, in a deck like this, you gotta run Spider Spawning. Spider Spawning is one of my favorite cards of all time. It is so much fun, so flavorful. And in a deck like this, with the flashback, I mean, you can cast it from your graveyard. We're running 30 plus creatures in the deck, so you're gonna have enough to at least get that 7 spiders needed to just immediately cast Hogaak again. And Worm Harvest is similar. I think in this deck it might even be better just because, one, you're running more lands than creatures, but two, Retrace is just so easy to do again and again and again and again. It gets you, again and again and again, it gets you into these loops, and these loops are what we're looking for to get so much value off of this just never-ending monster that's Hogaak. And then obviously within this, we're going to be running stuff like Rishkar's Expertise and Life's Legacy. I didn't talk about it before, but even in the enchantment slot, we had something like a Greater Good. We have all these power matter card draw effects, because sacking a creature, like with some of those, doesn't matter because Hogaak is coming right back. It turns into essentially free card draw. Life's Legacy turns into a 2-mana draw 8 with no downside, and that is insane. It is absolutely insane. And even though in a graveyard deck, a lot of times you want stuff in your graveyard, card draw is still important because there are certain things in this deck. While some graveyard decks, you just want everything in the bin, there are certain things in this deck that we do want in our hand. With the instance, you get access to some of the best removal in Commander with Golgari, so you're going to have something like Ass Trophy, you're going to have something like Beast Within, just basic stuff like that. To stay on that card draw theme, Momentous Fall is an instant speed, sack him to go ahead and draw a whole bunch of cards, so that is phenomenal in the deck. A card I love is Mausoleum Secrets. It's essentially an instant speed demonic tutor for a black card. As long as the CMC is less than or equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard, we're going to have at least 3-4 creatures in our bin at all times. And that's being very kind of modest unless someone Bajuka bogs us. This card, 99% of the time in this deck, is going to function as an instant speed demonic tutor, especially because a lot of our most important pieces that we're tutoring for have black in the color identity already. This card is just ridiculous. When I first read it, I kind of did a double and a triple take, and I was like, okay, I see how it's balanced, but at the same time, in a deck like this, it gets you whatever you need. I'm also a huge fan of the mill cards, get one back type effects. I put Grapple with the Past in here. Cards like Mulch and stuff like that. I absolutely love these effects because in a graveyard deck like this, it's like card draw plus. You essentially get card draw because you do get a card to your hand, but you're also filling your bin at the same time. These effects tend to be cheap mana cost wise, tend to be really cheap money wise, and these are just phenomenal. I didn't put as many in this deck as I do in a lot of graveyard decks just because there are so many slots we need to fill. But in general, I've been putting these cheap commons like this in more and more decks and have been just blown away with just how good they are. And then with the lands, just a basic Golgari mana base, not too much that you need to throw in there. You're going to get great value off of something like Mosswort Bridge though, because you're always going to have such a big power thing on board, which is great. And having a Rogue's Passage in there is kind of crucial because there are times in the game where you just need to get damage through, and Trample's great, but unblockability is even better. And we got a couple other creatures in here that can get kind of big, so definitely throw those in there. Now, if you're looking at the deck list, you might notice a couple lands that seem a little bit crazy expensive in there with Gaia's Cradle and Cabal Coffers. Not crucial at all to how the deck runs. Don't let that stop you from building the deck, because especially for a commander that doesn't need mana to cast it, these are just in there just because I have copies I wanted to throw them in there. Not at all crucial to how the deck runs. But what is crucial is a card like Dakmor Salvage, and again, get effects you want on lands. It's like a free slot, getting Dredge on a land. Not a surprise, not breaking news, obviously, but any graveyard deck, if you can get Dredge on a land, it's just free slots to get your deck to do what it wants to do. Not to mention, phenomenal discard fodder for Worm Harvest. Now that's going to do it for all the categories. Let's get into how we're going to win the game in this deck and the game-winning step. And most of the ways to win the game, the way I built this, are going to be from one card and one beautiful card, and that is Gerard Golgari Lichlord. Gerard is going to allow you to sack Hogaak, deal people damage. We have all our tokens to recast Hogaak, do it again, and you get into these loops like I was talking about. And instead of making tokens, now you're just hitting people in the face for 8. Phenomenal. This also in combinations with card like Night Howler, who can just make Hogaak insanely big, or Lord of Extinction, who by himself is already going to be freaking massive. You get into loops where you just sack stuff and get stuff out of control. Best thing is if somehow you lose access to Gerard, because being able to just get him back to you from your graveyard at instant speed makes it really hard for him to be gotten rid of. He's basically always there. But if it is gotten rid of, you can put Night Howler onto Hogaak, get an even bigger trampler, and hit him for commander damage also, which is freaking awesome. And then obviously it's a token deck also, despite the fact that Hogaak is the focus, it's a token deck. And the nice thing about this is you get other alternate win cons, and obviously a card like Craterhoof is going to end games, but the best thing about it is you don't need to drop all that money on a Craterhoof if you don't want, because Overwhelming Stampede is going to do just as much for us. Because we have that Hogaak, we have an 8 power creature just pumping the whole freaking team by 8. All of a sudden, you're winning the game like that. It's actually more mana efficient than Craterhoof is. A little harder to get back because it's not on a creature. But nonetheless, it's a cheaper option, and while I do run a Craterhoof, Overwhelming Stampede might be the better option. Both are phenomenal ways to just end the game, though. That's going to do it for this week's deck tech. I hope y'all really enjoyed it. If y'all had any experience with Hogaak, Hogaak is a crazy fun commander, crazy good time, and it's kind of in that nice power level where you're always doing things, you're always making a board impact, but it's not like it was in other formats. It's not going to be oppressing anyone, killing them too fast. I hope everybody is safe out there. I know the world is crazy right now. Hopefully everybody's staying healthy, staying safe. Hopefully we'll be getting as much content out here to help the self-quarantines and everything go by as quick as possible. But yes, stay safe, stay healthy. As always, to all the patrons, we love and appreciate y'all so much. Hopefully we get some Ikoria spoilers soon to help this whole quarantine thing go by a little bit faster. I know we're all probably getting a little stir crazy at this point. We're on day like 3, I think, and I'm already going a little crazy. So I would love some Ikoria to help pass the time by. Lots of exciting stuff to come. But until then, I will see y'all next time.